This video is a beginner-friendly tutorial where I'm going to walk you through the steps on how to set up a script, how to set up your character, in this case the DVD logo, and really I'm going to walk you through my thought process on how to do this. And if you want to skip this whole tutorial and just download the project, the link will be in the description below. Okay, to get started, we're going to start with a fresh new Godot scene. I'm building this in Godot 4.5, but I think these concepts are kind of not super complicated, and you can do it in an older version. So you can follow along with 4.5 or you can use something older. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is create a 2D scene because the screensaver was just flat, like it doesn't need 3D space. So we have our node 2D, and if we want to get the logo on the screen and it's moving, then the best thing to use is a character body 2D node. So we're going to right click, add child node, and type in character body 2D. The reason why we use this is because it natively has velocity in there, and that's what we're going to be controlling. So we're going to be telling Godot, move this character this direction at this speed. So it already has it built in for us, which is pretty sick, and we just need to call it in the code. Okay, so we created our character body 2D, and there's this little error message node configuration warning. It's just saying that we need a collision shape on here. We'll add that in a minute. So next thing we're going to add is the texture for the character or the image, or character being our DVD logo. So we're going to right click, add child node, and we're going to add a sprite 2D node. The sprite 2D node takes a texture, and once we put that in there, it'll populate, and then we'll get our little cool image. So you can open your file explorer and click and drag the image file into this file system, and Godot will load it in, and it will move it in your project file, which is pretty nice. So you don't have to worry about linking paths or whatever. The best use or the best thing to do is to have a white logo and not a black logo, because what we're going to do later on is add color to it. And if you add color on top of white, the color will come through. If you add color on top of black, you won't see the color. It'll just be black. So make sure whatever logo you use starts out as white, because we're going to be changing it later. So click on your sprite 2D node, and you'll see that on the right over here that the texture is empty. You're just going to grab the PNG, click and drag it over to that space and drop it. And so here's our logo. It is now underneath the character body 2D, and I'm just going to click the character body 2D. I'm going to click this little move mode, or I guess you hit W. I'm just going to click and drag it into the space here. You can see these faint, like purpley blue-ish outline. That's going to be our camera, where our camera is. So if we start it over here, we're only going to see this little corner of it. So I just like to click and drag it over here. The image looks pretty big, so I'm gonna shrink that. I'm gonna do that by clicking on the sprite 2D node, and we're gonna go to transform down to scale. I think I'm gonna scale it by about half, so 0.5. And since it's linked, it does both X and Y, and you get an even scale there. Now, to test and see if this will show up, you can come up here to the upper right hand. You can hit play to run project, but I like to do run current scene, because once you get a big project that has a bunch of different scenes and I just want to run the scene that I'm currently in, I find that to be more beneficial for me personally. So you're going to click that. Oh, it's going to ask you to save. So we'll save it as DVD screen scene. Save. The game is starting. And then boom, there's our logo. So when we play the game, the logo is right there. Awesome. So we got that going. So the next thing now is we're going to fix this error message here. So in order for the Godot to know that the logo has hit something, it needs a collider box. And with the collider box, it basically tells Godot, oh, you hit something, it's hit the shape, and we're going to do something about it. So click on your character body 2D. We're going to right click, add child node. You're going to type in collision shape 2D. Collision. There we go. And double click it. It will add it to your character. That error message has gone away. But now we have one on the shape. Because you need to define, over here on the right, the shape is empty. You need to define what that shape is, like what it looks like. I know it's kind of confusing. We already have a shape. Why do we need to know the shape? It's like that is the information for the shape 2D, as far as like the information for the collision, I guess. And then the shape defines what it looks like. So because our logo, let me zoom in here. Our logo is squarish. I'm going to go with a rectangle shape, and it pops it in there. Zoom in, middle mouse roll back and forth to zoom in there. And I'm going to, up here I had the move mode. I'm going to go back to the select mode, hit Q, and then I'm just going to click and drag. So you could do these individuals, or I'm going to undo this. You can click whatever corner or point you want and then hold down Alt on your keyboard. I don't know what that is for a Mac because I have a PC, but drag it out to the edges here, and you're going to do the same thing with the top. Hold down Alt, click and drag Alt, and get to the edges there. So now what this is doing, this collision shape is saying is that when you have other things in your object or in your scene, it's also going to have a collision, and when it touches the edges of here, we're going to do something within the code. Also, too, one thing I wanted to mention with the collision shapes is that you see this blue box in your scene space right here, but when you go and you play the project, you don't see the collision box. It's invisible. I'm sure you could make it visible, but we don't want it. So by default, it hides it visually when you launch the game because it's for the code stuff behind the scenes. Okay, now it's time to attach a script to our character body 2D to get this logo to move. So what you're going to do is you're going to select your character body 2D node in the tree, and you're going to click this attach new or existing script. Click that. We're going to name it whatever you want. So DVD logo, and come up here to this template thing. It has it might show up like this for you, or it might be selected and it might be showing this body 2D, default, or empty. I'm just going to turn this off for right now, so that when we create this, it should show up empty. I think it depends on what Godot version you're using, but I'm using Godot 4.5. So by default there, if you turn off the template, it should show up like this. Okay, so we have our script, brand new, squeaky clean. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the ready function. The ready function is already built into Godot, and basically what it says is when the game launches or you play the game, what does it do first? So we'll type in func for function underscore ready, and as you start typing it in, because it's already built in, it has it right there, so you can just hit tab as long as it's highlighted, and it fills out the rest of it, and then hit enter. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the velocity of the player. So we're going to type in velocity equals vector 2, and it's asking for some digits. 200 by 100. We'll go with this first. So as you can see for the vector 2, it's asking for a float. So a float is a number plus a decimal, like that. So this is what it's looking at. If it doesn't have that, it's an integer. But it also understands too whatever number you put in there, it's gonna even if it doesn't have a dot or whatever, it's just gonna assume that it's a float anyway. So it's unnecessary they put the 0.0 unless you wanted to be 150.5 or whatever. So it expects a float. So awesome. So we're gonna save that, and then if you need to go back to your scene, you go up here to the top and you can click 2D. It'll bring us this scene back. You don't have to. When I first started out, I was really confused how to go from script back to my scene. So you're on your script, and let's test it. You can hit this play button right here. It doesn't move. Why doesn't it move? That's because we just set the velocity, but we didn't tell Godot what to do with the velocity. So when the game starts up, the character body 2D has a bunch of default variables, I guess you could say, and we just set it to basically, we're going to move 200 pixels a second going to the right and 150 pixels down a second. But we need to do something with that. And for that, we need another function. So on the ready, it'll assign the velocity to this vector 2 information, but now we need to have it move it. So we're going to go down a little bit, do the same thing, say function, and this time we're going to be using another default method setup within Godot underscore, is it physics process delta. So what this says basically does is that every, I don't know, second. Oh, here you go. I pulled this up so you can read it. But it's going to apply the physics engine or the check to do stuff within this function per second. And the per second part is the delta. So encoding delta means time. I don't know why. I'm not a computer science major, but so now that we have the physics process, we're going to do something with the velocity. So if we want to move our character, we're going to use another handy dandy method that is built into Godot, so we don't have to write it out ourselves. It just has it, so that's really nice. It's going to be called move underscore, and we're going to go down to collide. You can use slide, but we're going to use collide because eventually our character is going to collide into something, and we need Godot to do something when it collides with something. That's why we made the collision shape thingy and added it to our character. So with this function, it expects to have a vector2 within the little brackets there. So we've already declared a vector2 up here with the velocity. So what we can say is velocity right there, and it likes it. So it's like, sweet, that's awesome, you're the best. So now if we go and play this, it's not doing anything. I wonder if that's because we need to add times delta. So let's do times delta. Oh, actually, now that I think about it. Oh, nope. Okay, that works. Okay, so when we launch the game again and we do times delta, it is moving in that 200 by 150 and it just goes on forever because we don't have any collisions. And we're timesing it by delta. I don't really know why it didn't show up on the screen there. If somebody knows, please let me know in the comments. But we can't just have velocity. We gotta times it by delta. And the delta, again, is time, like actual real time. I don't know why they call it delta. Another thing to look up. Anyways, okay, so we have our character is moving. So we want it to not go off the screen like that. So we're gonna go back to our scene, click 2D up here, and we need to build in some walls. Okay, so I'm gonna rename this just for, I don't know, future sake. I'll just say it's a player because a lot of games people have players other than just assets that are just chilling there. We're going to click on our node 2D, right click, add child node, and we're going to add the same way where we had to create a character body 2D node as like the parent, we're going to do for our walls a static body 2D. Static body means that it's something that's in your scene that's not going to move, and we're going to build walls and they're not going to move. So we're going to create that. It's also expecting a collision shape. So we're going to right click, add child node, and when you type in something, it shows up over here on the left, so you don't have to keep retyping it. So I'm going to double click that, and same deal. We have the collision shape, but what type of shape is it? We're going to go over here to the right, click empty, and since we're building a wall, I'm going to go with the rectangle shape again. And so here it is, because it makes it on the origin there. And we want it to cover this whole side. So I'm going to click this, scroll back out. Let's see. You could, oh yeah, that works. Grab it and pull it down. And I want to make sure it covers this whole wall. So let's grab it and go all the way down there. And then I want to use the same thing for the other side. I'm going to rename this wall. Oh my god, I can't type. There we go. And then I'll just duplicate it. Hello. So duplicate it by holding Control D with it selected. And then I'm going to grab this move tool, move it over here. Awesome, great, love that. And now we want to do the tops and bottoms. So I'm going to duplicate this again and collapse it. This is the rotate tool, so you can click this. And then I think you just, you just click and drag in the space and you can do that. I think too, if you want to be technical, go over to this right hand side of it and make sure you're on the parent, not the collision shape, there on the wall, and go down to transform. If it's not open, toggle it down and you can type in 90. Interesting thing though, so let's go back to this selector tool here and click on our collision shape. If we just use the same collision shape and we move it, notice how the other ones move too. And I think that's because it's using the same rectangle that we put in here. Like it's treating it as one object. So what we need to do is, I'm going to undo that, is we need to replace this shape with a new shape. So I'm going to get rid of it and click on the empty and do rectangle shape. It moved it right there because I don't know, because I guess I moved it. We can move it back, or you can be lazy like me. Or move it back this way, or you can be lazy like me and just grab the sides and pull it out. There we go. Cool. So now we have the top wall. Now we need to make a bottom wall. Duplicate it. Go to this move tool. The pivot point's right there. Whoop. If you wanted to go straight instead of all over the place, you can hit the arrow if you miss the arrow, because I think anything works. Yeah, you can click anywhere. Let me back up. You can just click, hold down Shift, and it will only go on the axis you're going up and down on. There you go. So now we have collapsed these. Now we have our walls. So if we play it, what happens? And it's going and it stops. Awesome. So we got it to where we have the collision shape. We said move and collide in the script, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to move it. And when it collides, like, what? It collides with the object and it stops. Awesome. But that's not what we want. We want it to bounce off. So let's get that working. But at least we know now that the collision stuff's working. So we're going to go back into our scripts. So we have this move and collide, and we need to tell it what to do when it does collide with the object instead of just stopping. And to do that, we're going to check it. We're going to do an if check thingy. So we're going to turn this into a variable. We're going to contain this movement, and when it outputs that it hits something, we're going to tell it what to do. So we're going to create a new variable, and I'm going to say var for new variable. We'll call it collision equals move and collide velocity times delta. So what this is saying is that, hey, we move when it collides with something, store that information, store that vector2 information of where it collides into this collision variable. So when we play it, I want to see what I don't know if it does anything. Okay, still does the same thing. So it still works and it's still doing the collision thing, but it doesn't know what to do with that information. It's like, I'm storing it, tell me what to do with it. Okay, so we're going to do if statement. So if collision, so meaning if the player moves and collides with something, it's true. Yes, it has hit something. What we're going to do, velocity dot bounce. Oh, but wait. It's giving me an error message. Why? And it says too few arguments for bounce. So what is it's expecting a vector2 within its little brackets there. So we got to give it a vector2. Again, a vector2 is something like this. In this instance, what we're going to do is we're going to do the normal of the collision. Now, the normal is basically the way the object is facing. So we're going to come up here, we're going to make another variable because we want to store it in a variable, and then we want to call that variable or access that variable in the bounce thing down there. So we're going to say var normal because we want the normal information. You can name whatever you want, equals. And now that we want to get the information from the collision variable that we made. Okay, so we're going to do collision, so it calls that variable and dot, and what I want it to do is I want it to get the normal vector2 information. So if we highlight over this, it's telling us that get normal is a vector2 thingy, and it says returns the colliding, oh my god, there we go, nope, hello, returns the colliding body shape normal at the point of collision. Okay, and the normal is like the direction it's facing. Sweet. So now that we have that, it's still like, I don't like, you need to call. And I was like, okay, we'll call. So now that we have that information, we're going to put it in here. So now we're going to bounce along the normal. And so if we play, what does that do? Does it work? Boom. Oh, but it's not bouncing. So it's technically working, it's hitting it, it's getting the information, but now we need to change the velocity. So right now, what it's doing is the velocity that we started at the start of the game is still doing this. We need to update the velocity on the character. So we're telling it that the velocity of the character, we want the bounce, and we want to bounce it on the normal, but now it needs to like do the bounce, if that makes sense. So to fix that, we'll just say velocity equals whatever, because we want it to change the actual velocity of the character, not like the information that is attached to the velocity, if that makes sense. And if I am not explaining that correctly, please correct me in the comments, but this is how I understand it. So now when we go and we play it, Godot bounce, and it bounces because it's updating real time in that physics process. So whenever it detects a collision, it's going to detect a collision. It's going to get the normal because we need to know which way the logo or the player needs to bounce, and it's going to take that normal, and it's going to be, oh, I want you to apply this normal to the velocity, and then I want you to update the velocity of the character. So that's kind of my understanding of how this code works. Awesome. So we got that to work. And the next thing now is to add some flavor. We're going to change the color of the logo. So we're going to close this, open up the script again. Now, to change the color of an image, we need to call the image, meaning like access it within code. So essentially what we want to do is we want to say, hey, take this image, change it to this color. So do that. The image is in the player node. So we're going to go back to our player node. And specifically, it's in the Sprite 2D. So the Sprite 2D node has the texture information, and that's what we want. We want to change this. So if we go back into our scene, our 2D scene, I'm going to zoom in here. I'm just going to hide the collision for a second so that we can just see the logo. We're selected, have our Sprite 2D selected. We have our texture. Now, how do we change the color? If you go all the way down here and visibility, I think I said that right, and modulate, here's some colors. So it's standard set to white. If we click that and we start moving it around, the colors change on our texture. So we can move it, and like this is great. We love these colors. So it has RGB and HSV, different modes here that we can access. So this is what we want to affect, but we want to affect it in the code. We could change it. So say we change it to that pink color, and then we go and we play it. It's now pink. But when it touches the edge, we want it to change. So we're going to do that within the script. So go back into our script, and we know that it's the Sprite 2D texture that we're affecting. So what you're going to do is you're going to click, so hold down on that node, hit Control, and drag it over here and place it, let go in your script. If you do it the other way around, like if you hold Control, click, and drag, nothing happens. So you need to make sure that you hold down your left mouse button, Control, and then drag, and it'll bring it over. So I'm going to delete that because it doesn't want to. So what this is saying is that on ready, when the game starts, I want you to assign the Sprite 2D node. That's what this is. This is the name of the node in here, to the Sprite 2D variable that we're making. So that way, it's like, oh yeah, you're going to do something with this node. You have the node ready for access, and Godot is just waiting for you to say something. Now, it's very important with these things that the names line up. So if you come over here and you change the name, right-click, rename to image texture, this will be broken, and it won't know what you're trying to call because we've changed the name. So what it does is when it runs the script, it goes through your scene and it looks for that name. So if you do change it, just make sure that you update this as well, so that they match, or else it's not going to understand what you're talking about. So I'm going to go back and just keep it Sprite 2D, rename Sprite 2D. You can change this name too if you don't want to keep it there. Like we can change this to player image if you want. It doesn't matter. You can make that up. As long as this is consistent with what's in the node tree, you're good to go. So for this one, I'm just going to keep it to what it picks by default, Sprite 2D. So we want to affect the color of this texture. So we're going to do that on the ready. I'll just go in here. So when the game starts, we want it to be a certain color. If you click on the Sprite 2D, make sure that's selected so that we can get access to stuff on the side here. Now, the thing that we changed to change the color, and I'll go back here, is the modulate. So if we go back in here and we change the color, it affects the modulate. And so this is the property that we want to affect. If you hover over it, it says the property is modulate, and it's with a color, and the color is taking 4 values there, so that's R, G, B, and alpha. It defaults, I believe, to RGB within Godot. So we come back in here, and we want to say spray 2D, because that's our node that we want to affect, dot modulate, and we know that it's modulate because when we hovered over here, it said to call that property, it's called modulate. So modulate equals, and it also said, let me hover back over here, that if we want to change the color, we need to do color, quotation marks, and numbers inside. So color, quotations, and right now it's telling us what we can put in there. We can put from color, alpha float, RGB is float numbers, and then we can do a string, I guess. But so for this, we'll make it pure red, and I can't remember what red is, but I think we're gonna do 0, 0, 2, 5. Okay, that's pure blue. So, and it's nifty, handy dandy. It shows you the sample of the color right there. That's pretty cool. I think maybe, oh, duh, RGB. So red here, and then 0. So, whoop, and we'll do that. So if we save that, and then we play it, there we go. So even though within our game scene here, the logo is this like gray blue, when we play it, because in the code it says assign it this pure red color. So awesome. We have a way to directly access that RGB value for the character or the player. So now, back in the script, we wanted to update every time it collides with an object, right? So it assigns it at the start, but now we wanted to keep doing it. So we're going to do that in here, in this collision, because we already have this information that when the player hits the wall and it detects a collision, do the thing. And in this case, the only thing it has so far is that it's going to bounce off the wall. So now we also want it to affect the color. So we are going to copy this. We're going to paste it there. And we're going to say, instead of it being red, we are going to turn it blue. And then we're going to play it. And it's red. And it changes to blue. Awesome. So now we got the concept of switching colors. So we're in the right place. We're on the right track here. Now we just need to hone it in. So right now, it only executes it once because we only have it typed once here. So what I'm going to do, and because it's the same information, I guess, I'm going to put this in a function to clean it up. So I'm going to make a new function here. I'm going to call it function, and I'm going to say, I'm going to call it, nope, no capitals, change color. So this is my custom function, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this information, copy, paste it here, and I'm going to get rid of it down there, and I'm going to call it in here, change color. That way, this like cleans up our code. Unaffected indent. What? Oh, I forgot the colon there. Okay. It's important to have that colon. What was I saying? Oh, so now we don't need to worry about making sure we have this function updated with their information. If we store the information down here, then we can affect this and just have it call, and then it's just cleaner code. We could have it, we're going to put it up here eventually, but I just want to test to make sure that our new function works. So we'll do that. It should be red, and it should change to blue when it hits something. So boom. Okay, so that works. Awesome. So I want this to be a random color each time. I don't want it to just be red and blue every time. I want it to pick a color, and I want it to change it to whatever so that it matches more of the DVD logo thing. So I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to come back and we'll call this, so change color tab. So now we just have it in one space, and we're going to affect this. I don't want it to just be one color. I want the color to change randomly. So we can do that. And now I'm using my big brain moment. So let me just hide this for reference. If you put the little pound symbol right there, or hashtag, whatever it makes it so it's coded out or commented out. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to use this as a reference. We're going to change this. So I want to randomize these values right here. So let's get rid of that. Right now, I guess it defaults to black, but that's not what we want. So it's three colors. Let's say random F is random float. It's a function within Godot, handy dandy Godot thing. And then it's expecting 3 values. So we'll do that. Random F, another function, just copy that. And then one more time for RGB. Awesome. Does it like that? So that this is, like I said, a function within Godot that's already built in. It returns a, oh my god. Okay. Returns a random floating value between 0.1 and 1.0. So, cool thing about Godot and I guess other coding languages is that they accept integers, so like 00 to 55, but they also accept floats from 0.0 to 1.0. So 1.0 equates to 255 and 0.0 equates to 0. So we can use this thing, random float, and it will still get the right information and it doesn't freak out on Godot. So let's test this. So what should happen is that when we play the game, it should pick a random color because when we start the game, we're doing change the color. So we're calling this function right here. And then when it hits, collides with an object, we want it to also pick a random color. So let's see if that works. Random color, and awesome. So now it changes. Sweet. And so this is picking different RGB values, and that's awesome, and we love that. So we got that working. But let's say that we wanted more control over the colors it picks. Because right now it's picking all colors within the RGB value wheel. So there's like bright saturation, it could go like really dull colors. Maybe we want to control how saturated the color is because on the DVD screen, the colors were more pastel and chill versus like this kind of like dark green stuff. So to do that, we could do it with RGB values, but it's easier actually to use HSV within Godot. So RGB values takes a little bit of red, a little bit of green, a little bit of blue, and that gets your color, right? And there's ways to control it, I'm sure, but I like it to do it the easiest way, which is switching over to HSV, because that's really what we want to affect. We want to affect the hue, the saturation, and the value. So the saturation, we go all the way up to saturation to 100, and let's push all these colors up. So this is like the brightest of bright bluish color. If we go all the way to red. Okay, so that's 255 red. And say we want a pastel red, we'll take the saturation and we'll lower it. Okay, so now this is more like a pink because I guess a pastel red is a pink. But say we want the blue, again, this is like really bright blue, but we want a pastel version of it. So we'll tone down the saturation. If you want it to be darker, you can affect the value here. So you'll get like a dark pastel blue, but if we have it at 100%, we'll lower it down, adds black into it. But for this DVD thing, we really just want to affect the hue and we want to affect the saturation, and we want to leave the value at 100. Like we want it to be 100% color, not darker. So if the color range is, let's say we'll do half. Whoop, I hit enter and it closed it on me. And then this can be whatever color it wants to pick, but but because the saturation is at 50 or half, it keeps the color at this nice pastel color. So that's what we want to affect within our script. And again, does it work if I hover over it? No, but I already know the handy dandy methods for that. By default, when you affect color within Godot, it does RGB, but if you look at that second paragraph, you can change it from RGB to from HSV. So we're going to use that method right there to get access to the HSV information. So to do that, we're going to just say color dot from underscore HSV, put a bracket, or do I need a bracket? No, because I'm just going to reuse the bracket. Okay, cool. So now if we hover over this, it tells us that what is it expecting? It's expecting H, S, V, and alpha. H is hue, S is saturation, and V is a value, still floats, so we can keep using the random F. Because we're using HSV and because we know that we want the saturation to be at half, and it uses floats, then we know that 1 equals 100%, 0.5 is half, and 0 is 0. So I want the saturation to be half. So we're going to go 0.5. And the value, when we were looking at this, we wanted the value to be 100%. So because we're doing a float, I want to get rid of this. And I want to say 1.0. Okay, but we want the hue to change. We want the hue to be whatever color it wants to pick, but we want to control the saturation of the value. So save that. So you can see from the original, it's kind of the same setup. You got your color, and it's going to take a float, float, float. But we want the color information, but we want to affect only the HSV, and which changes the values in here. Instead of RGB, it's HSV. So if we play that, it should start with the pastel. So the pastel blue changes, and the colors are more controlled with saturation value. So boom, there we go. And now the last thing we need to do is change the background color to black. So to change the background color to black, let's go in 2D mode. Right now it's defaulting to the gray because that's what the scene is. We're going to go to project settings. Scroll down to use of rendering, and then scroll to environment, and it says default clear color, so it's this gray color. We're just going to click it and go all the way down to black. So close. So now our back screen here is black, and when we play the game, boom, now we've got our logo. So there you go. By using the bounce principle here, we can get the logo to bounce around the edges. Why is it not changing color? Oh, it just so happened to use the same color a few times. Corner! Oh, almost corner. Okay, cool. Yeah, but that's the project. So that's how you can recreate the classic DVD screen within Godot.